Oh, it takes me back. A long way back, actually. All the pubs gave their beer free as we ran around the town, of course, and we had to stop at various pubs, which rather slowed the competitors down, and they needed great strength of spirit and willpower and muscle power to finish the races. Les Payne look in the background, making sure that everything that should be hid is hid. It's through Les Payne that who was in charge of the territorial army of Newport Pagnell that we got all our manpower. Ah, looks like myself, holding up prize cups or something. So ends the wheelbarrow race. We had that inventive turn of mind, and we wanted something to entertain ourselves and also the public. Because our minds ran in that particular direction, we organised these weird events. And weird they really were. We had a set of rules drawn up, which were crazy anyway, and everybody joined in with a will. Yeah, well, it all really started with the celebrations for the Queen's Coronation, 1953. I was asked by the town council to be the entertainment secretary, and for that particular year. They wanted entertainment, and we set up a committee to organise the entertainment mostly, but I had an idea for something really crazy, and so I thought, well, a crazy day would be a jolly good idea. And we advertised it, we got everybody to help. All these events are listed in the Coronation booklet of that particular year, and the crazy day was something really special. We ran a tight wire across the high street, and we said the town surveyor was going to walk the tightrope. The high street was blocked from side to side with people. I have a picture. You could not move in the high street. And one policeman standing there wiping his brow. It's a hot day. And at the very last moment we ran the wire across the actual street itself, and he walked across there with balloons on a pole. Then I was chased from a shop with a bag of swag as a burglar, pushed into the stocks, and they threw rotten tomatoes at me. And we had, best of all, was the old bus shelter. And it was nicknamed the Rabbit Hutch because it stood on legs, the wind would whistle through it and the rain would come in. So we put wire netting around it, straw on the ground, put rabbits in it. And there's a lovely picture of two old ladies standing about 50 yards away, completely unconcerned while the rabbits are there. And we had the biggest water otter in captivity, and we charged people to look at it. Turned out to be a kettle. A large kettle, a water otter, of course. That was crazy day. Well, the crazy day happened in May of that year, and then in June, on the Coronation Day itself, different streets ran their own parties, and they organised their own events, from fancy dress and races and everything you can think of. Each particular street had its own ideas. The whole town joined in. A great day. After that, of course, we were involved in all sorts of other organisations, and for instance, three of us got together and formed what we call PAG Productions. Colonel Payne, Peter Adams and myself, Ron Groom, PAG. We used to meet in the pub for drinks, and we decided that Newport Pagnell needed something for the pensioners. They had no comforts, a little room where the old men could play dominoes, but not much more. And we hadn't a club. So we thought, well, we must raise money to provide comforts for them. So because we had a crazy mind anyway, we decided crazy ideas would be the thing. Races around the town in various forms, and Les Payne, who was captain or colonel later on of the Territorial Army, could provide the manpower, and Pete Adams for the competitors from all the pubs. We knew all the pubs, and I would do publicity, and we came up with ideas such as wheelbarrow races, pram races, soapbox derby, wee willy winky races, and best of all, river revels. All these events gathered the townspeople. We used to block the streets of Newport Pagnell, which couldn't be done now, and the people would throw money into blankets held by the Territorial Army people. Ah, here we go. Yeah. Yeah, Les, Pete and myself, here we go. Now do we see us falling off? Right, one. Oh, the best shot would have been the collapse. Oh, someone's still on. Oh no, another race. Oh, we were intrepid in those days. Sometimes we'd copy, like the only pancake race. We had a Christmas pudding race in Newport Pagnell Christmas time, when they ran down the street with pieces of Christmas pudding, which they had to sell. And on other occasions we'd invite celebrities down. For instance, for the council as well, we invited Kenneth Weston of the Weston Brothers, who came with his wife for nothing, and they wouldn't do that now. Well, he couldn't, because he's long passed away, of course.
In our family once a week, there's a gathering quite unique. We have company, so to speak, and everyone stays till 2.
They did an act with a piano, sort of the old school tie type of thing, comedy songs which they wrote and played. Kenneth Weston would sing the song and his brother would play the piano.
Mother on the sideboard looking very red, father with a bomb hanging on his head, looking for the baby underneath the bed in the parlour when the company is gone.
I rang them up, actually. He lived at Bedford. I rang him up and said, we're having the pram race, I remember at the time. Could you come down and present the prizes? Yes, he said, of course I will. So I put the phone down and suddenly realised I hadn't asked him how much it was. So I rang him back again and said, I'm sorry, I didn't ask how much you'd charge. He said, oh no, I'll do it for nothing. Then came down with his wife. She started the race and he presented the prizes.
Auntie Lizzie and Cousin Kate getting into an awful state, wiping sandwiches off the gate and throwing them in the street. Talk about the squash, trying to get a wash in the parlour when the company's gone. Looking at the cheese, sticking to the free in the parlour when the company's gone. Up and down the whatnot, everybody crawls, trying to get the paper back upon the walls. Mother with the clothes holes hanging out the smalls in the parlour when the company's gone. I wonder whether you know the story of the navvy who got a new job. He met his pal and his pal said, so you got a new job then, eh? He said, yes, I'm what they call an engineer now. He's engineer. That must come rather strange to you, doesn't it?
We had some very good volunteers. In the River Revels, I remember, we had a tug of war across the river. We had the Sea Scouts from Old Stratford, Stony Stratford, coming in, joining in as natives, invading Newport. We had the defenders of Newport. We had Horatio holding the bridge. It was a plank across the river where he defended against all comers and pushed them in the river. And we had people from Sywell Aerodrome, the Linnell brothers, who ran a clothing business, flew over in their separate planes from Sywell in virtually nil visibility, low cloud. Firstly, they couldn't find Newport Pagnell, then they had another go and followed the river, and they came in and dropped bags full of flour. And I got permission by ringing up the civil aviation for permission. Somehow I got it. I then went to the police and told them I got permission, which was all on the telephone. We couldn't do it now. Dropping bags. I warned the crowd that the planes would come over and they didn't believe me. But when they finally appeared from the mist, Flour went everywhere. Of course, they scattered madly. I mean, it wouldn't have hurt anybody really. They were only flour bags. But that was a great show. We had a celebrity called the Damas of Neloy, which is an anagram for Adams and Ron, who dressed up as an Eastern potentate with his secretary. And we had an ex-colonel from the war saying he'd met him in the Far East. He couldn't speak English, and we sold his autographs at 2 and 6 a time. It turned out it was all a spoof. And Bob Wesley loaned his big American car for him to arrive in. Crazy events, yeah. But the whole point was that at the end of all these events, and the money we gathered, Les Payne eventually got onto Newport Town Council and proposed the idea of a club. And the council suddenly latched onto the idea, gave us a piece of land at Peppercorn Rent, and we built the very first Brooklyn Centre. It cost £3,200. We sold bricks at £1 a time. We received donations from various people, and at the very end we were £250 short, which we raised by a mammoth raffle. Everybody set to work and the place was built. And that was the very first Brooklands Club, and was opened officially by the Lord Lieutenant of the county in 1959. Since then it's grown and grown and grown, mainly because in the first instance Arthur Mitchell, a local paper, left a legacy, which we expanded the building, and only last year we had this very new large premises built. We knocked the old place down and built the new one, which stands today as the Brooklyn Centre. Events are held every day of the week for the people, and it's all run by volunteers. Payne, Adams and Groom, the 3 founder members. There's only me left, Ron Groom, and I remain as honorary president of the club to this day. Well, after the PAG Productions finished, it wasn't the end to crazy events in the town. We, at that time, were forming a concert party called the Pioneers, and we did all the crazy events there. We opened the town swimming pool, and the Middleton swimming pool it was, and I was the first person to be thrown in, fully clothed, to declare the pool open. There was an official opening as well, of course, but ours was the comedy one. That was something. We also switched on the town's Christmas lights. The other event after that I remember is something that I thought up to publicise Newport Pagnell, and that was Welcome Stranger. We'd stop a local family at a petrol station, namely the M1. They were just passing through and say, have you got an hour to spare? We'd take their car away, put them in an Aston Martin with the celebrity, like Miss World was one, Miss United Kingdom was another, drive them around the town to all the various places of interest, take their car away and have it washed and greased and cleaned, right? Have their name and address printed on headed note paper whilst they were going around the town, right? Have a cake printed, and all whilst they were going around with the celebrity. And then send them the newspaper cuttings of the day. I've got a whole pile of those. And I got it Anne Sidney, who was Miss World in 1956 or something like that. Or no, 60 something, 65 I think. It's amazing who you meet. Through my work I took her up to Nottingham, and we did presenting her with down a bowling alley. She mimed a record she'd done, such as The Boy in a Woolly Sweater. I introduced her on stage at Nottingham Pally Dance.
Knit one per one, take a tip from me. Boys like girls with femininity. You will find once you begin it, soon will fall in love.
And I was selling sweaters at the time, and I got 6 volunteers to wear the sweaters, and she did the singing.
But I love the smile of the boy. together go. Knit one, purl one, take a tip.
That early view of the soapbox derby and the pram race and wheelbarrow remind me all the things that we've done in town. And one thing triggers another, doesn't it? And your mind goes back and, oh yes, because someone else will remind you. Nostalgia comes in because you suddenly realise what activities we could indulge in without any fear or favour of running across regulations and health and safety. These days, to run the soapbox derby, you have to wear crash helmets and everything else and get permission for every possible thing. Those days we took all sorts of, well, chances, I suppose. Could you have had a tug-of-war race across the river? No, you couldn't. They'd most probably drown. Could you have a whole crowd of people fighting each other in the river, knocking each other out? I had to start counting heads to make sure we hadn't lost anybody, for instance. Could you drop flour bag bombs from an aircraft? No, you couldn't. So all the fun's gone, hasn't it? Eventually you'll have to have permission to cross the road in case you get knocked down. Oh yes, that reminds me, didn't even have a conker competition. That would have been good. Can't do that now. Well, when you think back, and the things you get involved in, we're just being a bit crazy, I think. Keeps you young.